using the correct brushes in the correct way really perfects your look. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. As you guys probably already know, this is where I create makeup tutorials to product reviews, basically everything to do with beauty. Now, I just want to say a quick thank you for all the love and support that you guys have shown me ever since I've started my YouTube journey. Some of the comments that I get from you guys, honestly, it means the world to me and it puts a big smile on my face and it gets me really excited about the next video that's coming out, just to kind of hear your thoughts or just see what you guys think about it. So today's video is still within beauty, but it's a question that I get asked a lot over on Instagram and also here on YouTube, is how to use makeup brushes. Now, it can be really daunting because there are so many different types of makeup brushes out there that it can be really difficult to figure out what to use which brush for and what textures to use with it. You've got the pencil brush, you've got the stipple brush, you've got so many more. So I want to go through all that today with you. But what I'm going to do is kind of break it down for you to make it really easy to understand. But I'm also going to show you how I create my signature makeup look using these brushes, because I want to show you how I use the brushes for my type of look that I do. And then maybe a bit later, we'll do a few more videos which are a bit more detailed, focusing maybe on just face or just eyes. But we'll talk a bit more about that a bit later. Now, I am very confident that you guys are going to be super confident by the end of this video about the brushes that I'm going to be using today. It is so easy to understand, even if you're a beginner or you're kind of newish to makeup. So don't be afraid and just sit back, watch and enjoy the video. But before I forget, please don't forget to give my video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button so that it helps me out with the algorithm, but also it shows me your support as well. Now, you can also find me on Instagram, where you can follow me for daily beauty news and PR unboxing, which you'll find on my story. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into the video. So I've already applied concealer to my eyelids. I didn't really want to show that because I don't use brushes for that. So I'd rather just show you everything that I use brushes for this type of look. So we're going to start with concealer. I'm using the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer, and I usually just apply this straight from the wand to begin with. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply this in these areas here. I definitely need it today because I'm kind of suffering with a bit of redness today and I feel like I have allergies. And I use two different shades. I'm not really going to go too in detail with this because I think I've explained it in another video. So I use a slightly lighter shade and a slightly dark shade. So I've already got my light shade there and just going to apply. I'm going for more of a full coverage look. Well, not full coverage, it's kind of like medium coverage, but there you go. So I apply the concealer everywhere that I need to first, and then I go ahead and use my brush to really spread it out. Now, there are so many other ways to use your brushes, which I'm going to go into with more detailed videos a bit later. But for this, I just wanted to show you how I use my brushes for this specific look. So I'm going to go over to my next concealer. I'm using the NARS Creamy Concealer in, what is this? You know what, I'm just going to go ahead and put the name up there because I can't even pronounce it. So this one, I really like this colour because it's kind of a cool colour. There's no warmth in it, no peach or pink, and I love that. So I'm just going to apply this here. There you go. Really kind of, I'm not too fussed about the neatness because I'm going to show you how neat we're going to go. Then I use a much lighter concealer, same thing, NARS Creamy Concealer, and I just apply this on the areas that I feel like need that extra brightness. So down the nose, that's about it. Okay, now we're going to move on to my brush, and I'm using the KEVYN Aqua Duet Concealer brush. I'm going to use the flat part of the brush. So let me explain this brush. This is an obvious concealer brush. It's flat. I don't exactly know the hair on this brush, exactly what hair it is, but because it's flat and it's kind of long, it's really great for smoothing concealer over certain areas. So it's great for kind of getting that seamless application without those brush strokes. So I'm going to go ahead and just start kind of blending, not blending, I'm just kind of smoothing it out onto the area, and this helps me kind of really shape the concealer to help shape my face for the sculpting that I'm doing. There you go. Okay, so now we're gonna go over to the eye area here, and I'm just gonna get this really nicely kind of even. So you can see straight away how this kind of neatens everything up. So I'm using the flat part of the brush. Now this concealer brush is great for kind of basically painting anything onto the face. And I'm gonna go ahead on this side and do the same thing here. I feel like, I know that most people would kind of like, there you go, or I knew I was gonna get concealer on my hair. I know most people would kind of like think, well, you know what, I'm just gonna apply it with the wand. If you are one of those people who just applies everything from the wand, from the applicator of makeup, please just try, just one day when you've got extra time, try kind of perfecting everything with your brushes and then see what that look comes out like. Because I feel like using the correct brushes in the correct way really perfects your look. So I'm going to do the same over here, and I feel like what I'm doing here, you can't really get that kind of nice seamless finish with the applicator. Forgot to blend this bit in, let's go ahead and do that. So you can see how I'm using the flat part and I'm really kind of shaping the area, and that's what this brush does. It helps to really get those clean edges and it just makes everything so much more even. There you go. So now you can see there's a lot of shape going on there. Now I'm going to use this same brush. Usually what I do is just clean off the brush a little bit, just using a tissue or something like that. So I've cleaned this off, and now what I'm going to do is use a darker concealer, and I'm using the creamy concealer again. This is a much darker shade, and I'm just going to kind of apply this. I usually just apply this right there and a little bit here. Oh yeah, I forgot my nose. Wow, I don't know if you heard that, but that was my stomach. I am very hungry right now. It's day 2 of eating clean again. I've had a month off and it's hard. I'm gonna go back in with our concealer brush. I'm just gonna blend this in. There's so many things you can do with this type of brush, and it doesn't have to be this specific brand. It can just be a standard concealer brush, which is very similar. There you go. So now that we've done that, I'm going to move over to the other side of the brush, which is a really nice kind of dome shape. It's a little bit more fluffy. It almost looks like a eyeshadow brush which goes in the socket area of the eye. What I love about this is it's just really easy to blend the edges, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I use this side of the brush to just blend the edges, and you're going to see that basically you'll see all of these shapes stay where they are. The coverage will still be there, and the brightness will still be there, but the edges are completely diffused. So I'm using the tip of the brush. Now under here, under the eye area, this is really important. We're going to go right in, side to side. And this brush, it also helps to lift some of the product off so that you're not left with too much excess product. Now what I like to do is just take off the excess on the back of my hand so that you know, you're not having too much of a build up on the brush. So I'm mainly going around the edges of the shapes that I've created, and this is where you're going to see that everything just kind of like blends in really nicely, but you've still got that shape and that coverage. Same on this side. So you can see we've done the kind of light bright shade. How are you liking my hair today, by the way? I'm not too sure, but this is it. This is it in its raw form. Kind of curly in all the wrong places. So now I'm going to go over to the dark shade, and I'm just going to kind of buff the edges in. There you go. So all we've done is just diffuse the edges. Now we're going to just very quickly put my foundation on. I don't use a brush for this, I use a sponge. You can use a brush for this, and again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do a more detailed video on how to use every type of brush. This is showing you the brushes I use for this specific look. So I'm going to go ahead and use my sponge, just using any basic sponge, and I'm just going to apply my foundation real quick and come back in a sec. Okay, and we're back. So what I've got on now is my powder. I didn't use any brushes for all of this application, but now I'm going to use a brush. So I'm using the Makeup Forever 122 brush. Now this is a straight brush, and it's kind of like, it's a stipple brush. It's very soft at the end, so it is great for kind of like diffusing powders into the skin. You can actually use some stipple brushes for foundation application. I feel like it takes a little bit longer, but I personally love this brush for dusting off powder from the face. So as you can see, I've got powder on the face. There's nothing on the brush. I'm literally just going over, and you can see I'm kind of like almost dusting it off, but I'm also kind of like buffing it into the face. Now I don't do my under eye area with this brush. Oh, I feel like I just inhaled a whole load of powder there. So I don't use this for my under eye area brush, because obviously the area is a lot smaller. So for this, I'm going to use my next brush, which I have been using for years, and I absolutely love this brush. I've actually got so many of this brush. Look how bright this is because it's new. Look how faded that is because it's so old. I think I've had this for around like 10 years maybe. This brush is amazing. It is the Real Techniques. I had to make sure I got that right. Real Technique. I can't remember if it's Technique or Techniques. Real Techniques setting brush. And this brush is basically just the perfect size for the under eye area. So as you can see, it's kind of like a medium size kind of dome brush, and I feel like the shape of this brush, no matter how many times I've washed this, never changes. And I love that about this brush, because some brushes, the hair starts falling out, or you know, the hair starts coming out onto the face when you're using it, and this brush always keeps its shape, and it's just the best size, and I just love the shape of it because I feel like it's just perfect for the under eye area. So this is great for the under eye area. I'm just going to start dusting the powder off. Another thing that I just wanted to mention about brushes is that I honestly, ever since I started as a makeup artist, I have been saying the same thing over and over again. I don't care what it says on the brush. I don't care what the company are trying to sell. I don't care if it says that it's a highlight brush. If it works for me on other areas of my face, then I'm going to use it in those areas, because I don't believe that you should just stick to what brands tell you that this is only for this area. I feel like you need to think a bit more outside the box. Did I get that saying right? You need to think a bit more outside the box? No, think outside the box. Sometimes, honestly, I listen to myself. I'm like, how am I okay with putting this up online? Anyway, let's move on. You need to think outside the box, because I feel like with any kind of brush, just see where it kind of, I honestly never look at a brush and think, oh, this is for the foundation. I use it what I feel like it should be used for. Next, we're going to move on to the eyebrows, and I'm using the ZOEVA 317 winged eyeliner brush. Now this brush is obviously your typical winged eyeliner brush, like how they all look. It isn't really too thin. I feel like it isn't thin enough for kind of gels, because I feel like it's not stiff enough for that. And I'll explain in a minute what I mean. Now it's quite a flexible brush, which is great, but I personally feel after using numerous different angled brushes, which I love using for the eyebrows basically, I think this is best for powder, because it's thin enough that it gives you that nice precise line for the eyebrows, but it's not that thin that it can replicate hairs. It definitely cannot replicate hairs. It's way too thick for that. Now, what I'm going to use now is my eyeshadow powder, because I want to show you, this isn't necessarily my daily look. This is sometimes I do like using powder on the brows, but I just want to kind of show you how this works. So I basically use the tip of this brush. Now, it isn't just about how to use, like which brushes to use where. It's also about what part of the brush you use, and that is so important. Like which part of your brush you're using, because you can use one brush, but you have maybe 2 or 3 different parts of the brush that you could use that gives you a completely different result. So I'm going to use the tip of the brush, and when I say the tip, I mean this bit here. Not this tip here, I mean this flat part here. I'm using that whole section. Now, the sides of this brush are not going to do anything for me when it comes to the eyebrows. So we're going to use this part here, and I'm using that to just kind of dip into the powder. Now my powder is I'm using the Bobbi Brown eyebrow powder. I'm just literally just dipping it in like that. I'm just going to shape my brows. So I'm just going to press. Now what I'm doing is I'm kind of like using, I'm using the tip, I'm using that same part that I've applied the shadow to, basically just kind of shaping my brows slightly. And I'm really sorry if I sound like I'm really breaking it down a bit too much, but I'm just used to how I teach in my classes, where I just want to give you everything, you know. I see a lot of videos where people are like, so now I'm gonna just start blending it out. And that's their way of telling you what to do. Like, some people don't know how to blend. So I'm trying to really break it down for you. So I apologize if I've broken it down way too much, but I just really want this to help you. I want everyone to be able to understand this. So I'm using the tip. Again, when I say the tip, I mean this section here. And I've applied that into the powder, and I'm holding my brush like this. Now, the way you hold your brush is also very important. It's not just about the brush, it's not just about the type of hair it is, it's not about just what part of the brush you use, but it's also about how you hold it. Because if I hold this brush like this, automatically I'm using the flat part of the brush. I'm not actually using the tip where I've applied the eyeshadow. Oh my God, let's just start that bit again. The brow powder. So I've applied the brow powder to the top part of this brush, and that is the part that I want to use. So I've got to make sure that I hold it upright. So I'm using the correct part, because if you hold it like this, then basically you're going to get really kind of like blurred lines. You're not going to get the kind of shape that you want. So we're going to hold it upright, and I'm literally just pressing that kind of onto the skin, and I'm doing a very short drag. So I'm not dragging it along, but it's a very kind of almost like a slight flick. And I'm just shaping the bottom part of my brow. I always lift my brows because I feel like when you lift them, that's when you have more expression, and sometimes I miss a bit. Now I'm going to do the same on the top and fill in the bits where I feel like my hair is a little bit sparse. I feel like with powders, it's never enough for me because I do have sparse brows, so I've always got to kind of go in with a little bit of gel or a kind of eyebrow pen to help kind of really create those flicks, replicate those hairs, because this brush just doesn't cut it for that kind of thing. So it's definitely not the right brush for a gel. I personally don't feel it is anyway, because for a gel, I feel like I need a very stiff angled brush, which kind of stays together. Whereas this, if I was to coat this with gel, I feel like, and I don't feel like, I've actually tried it and it hasn't worked. So what happens is it sticks together really well, and then after a little while you get the odd hair that starts going rogue, and then that's it. If you have even one hair sticking out of this where it's not meant to be, you know, you're gonna get, it's not gonna be clean, right? So you've really got to make sure that your brush is the kind of brush that sticks together well. So I feel like I've got this shape right. Now I'm gonna kind of go over to the other side, because I'm gonna go in and adjust it with some gel afterwards. So I'm just gonna do the same thing. So now we're going to use a brow gel. I'm using the KIKO brow gel here, and you can use any kind of gel, but I personally love this gel. I'm using it in a kind of like medium brown. Now the brush that I'm using is the INGLOT 31T. That's as much as I can read on it, but I'll make sure I put the full details above. Now this brush I love, and look, obviously the brush that I'm going to show you is super clean, right? Because I would have washed these afterwards. But right now it's got a lot of product on there, and I love it because when you have more of the gel on there, I basically clean it off, but the excess gel which is left on the brush, which is not going to come off unless I actually wash it, it works really well because it actually molds the brush in the shape that you want. So this specific brush is obviously an angled brush, but as you can see it's really like kind of thin. Now once you've applied product to it, it gets even thinner, and because gel dries to a kind of, it just becomes very stiff once it dries. So what that does is it kind of holds the brush in shape. So I don't wash this, oh my God, that's really difficult to say, wash-ish. I don't wash this brush every day or anything. Like I'll be on, who washes their brushes every single day? Let's be honest. Unless you're working on a client, that's completely different. But for yourself, you know, I don't wash my brushes every single day. I probably wash them once a week. at most. So with this brush, I probably wash this every 2 weeks, to be honest, because I like it to stay in that kind of shape. Now this brush is great for use with gel. So what I usually do is have the gel on the back of my hand, and then I basically apply the gel. Now this is where I really want to show you this properly. So, okay, let me just get in position. Right, so I've taken this brush into the gel pot and I've just kind of scraped out some gel. Now what I'm going to do is apply this just on the back of my hand like that. What I've done is I've just coated the brush like this. So I'm actually not using the tip now, I'm actually using the sides of the brush and I'm dragging it through the gel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab hold of a tissue and I'm literally just going to take this brush into the tissue and then squeeze the brush, and I'm going to just take the product off, and it leaves just the right amount on the tip, and it also ends up shaping my brush. So that's how I coat the brush, and I go back and do that every so often when I need to, but I always squeeze the tip with the brush because always squeeze the tip with a tissue because then it takes the excess product off and it shapes my brush nicely, so it's nice and super thin, ready for my application. Now this is where I'm going to hold this in a specific way. Now you can see there's a high point to this brush. Now I want to make sure that that high point is facing down, and I'm going to use the tip of the brush. So again, same as before, I'm using this whole section here at the top. I'm not holding the brush like that. I'm making sure I'm holding it upright, but the highest tip of the brush should be at the bottom. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to start creating hairs and I'm going to replicate it. Now with this brush, I'm pressing that gel in, but I'm basically dragging it very slightly upwards. So I'm just gonna apply this on the bottom part here because I like there to be a few kind of hairs on that area. And you can see how my brow is kind of slowly coming together. I'm doing the same thing here. Now, I move the brush according to the angle of the hair that I'm trying to replicate. So for example, the highest point was facing down because I started on this section here and I was moving the brush up. Now I get to this point, I'm kind of like holding it a little bit to an angle, but I'm still using the tip. So I'm just making sure that it's kind of facing the right direction based on the type of hair direction that I'm going in. So now I'm going to go over to the other side, just going to get my tissue and squeeze that product off, and then start again on this side. Now when I finish with that, I always clean off the brush with the tissue again, because don't forget this gel on the brush is going to completely dry up and it's going to keep it in that perfect shape for you. Now we're going to move on to the eyes. I'm going to create a look which I wear very often because I just find it's really easy to create. So I'm going to use the Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palette, and I'm using this kind of warm brown. It's almost like a brick brown. And this is the Instant Look of Love in a Palette Glowing Beauty. I don't know which part of that is actually the name of the palette, but anyway. So the brush I'm going to use for this is one of my favorite brushes. This is a Sephora Pro Shader brush, number 18. I use this brush on so many clients, not this exact one, I have so many of them. But this brush is amazing for application. Now it's kind of, as you can see, it's a small shader brush, so it's very kind of dome shape, but it's slightly flat and it's great for precision. I feel like this brush is great if you want to kind of create the right shape, and then you can go in and blend with a different brush later. So we're going to use this to apply the eyeshadow, and I'm literally just going to be applying this to this area here. So I've applied the eyeshadow to the tip of the brush and I'm using the tip to apply it. So I'm not using the flat part, I'm using the actual tip, because it's giving me more shape and I feel like it's easier for me to create the shape that I want. I want a slightly lifted look, so I'm literally just applying it to the lash line and then I'm kind of lifting it slightly. Now with the brush, because this is for my application, I'm not dragging it out so much. I'm just gonna apply it very close to the lash line. So you can see I've gone super thin here, and then as you can see, when you get halfway through the lid, we're going to go a little bit thicker and a little bit more lifted. Now I'm pressing this brush, so you don't drag. With this kind of brush, it's all about pressing. You press the colour onto the skin, and we're going to adjust it after. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side, so you can start from whichever part that you want. I'm not going to make this complicated for you. It's honestly really easy. So I'm pressing into the lash line, and then right here we're going to go a little bit higher. Now this is where I like to look straight ahead in the mirror because I want to make sure that I get it symmetrical. I don't want one flick, you know, looking slightly lower than the other. So I'm kind of like, my eyes are going back and forth, just making sure that I'm getting my placement right. Yeah, I'm happy with the shape. So as you can see, it's there, but it's a little bit messy. So that is how you use that brush. Now I'm going to move on to another brush which is going to help blend it all together. Now I'm using the ZOEVA brush, and this is the 231 Luxe Petite Crease. So again, I don't care that it says that it's a crease brush. Honestly, I use it where I feel that it works best. So this brush is great because it does work great in the crease. Don't get me wrong, it works perfectly in the crease. But I do love using this to blend eyeshadows on the lash line. And as you can see, it's the typical kind of like dome shape, but it's a little bit longer than the previous brush that we used. So the bristles are not so compact. So they kind of like spread out quite nicely, and it gives you, it's perfect for blending. So we're going to use this with no product on there, and I'm literally just going to buff that product that we've already got on the lash line. I'm just buffing it back and forth. And then when I get to this end bit, I'm kind of like going, I'm not going to say it's going back like it's going in one direction. It's kind of going all over the place, but I'm using the tip of the brush, and I'm actually pressing very lightly. I'm not pressing too hard on the skin. So you can see that's already blended it out, and it's super easy to use this brush. So you just use the tip of it and try and keep your movements small. So we're going to do the same on the other side. Again, just buffing the product in. We're trying to keep within that same area where we've applied the product because we want the shape to stay the same, but we just want the edges to look slightly diffused. So now you can see it looks diffused and it's done. How easy was that? So now we're going to move on to another one of my favorite brushes. This is the Sigma Winged Liner E06 brush. I have loads of these just as backup because I really do like this brush. So as you can see, it's a very short, super fine tip. It's slightly angled, but I love the fact that the kind of bottom part of the angle goes straight into the actual brush handle. So it's not so kind of, you get more of a, it's more of a curved angle. So it's very fine and it's super short, so you get really great definition with this, and it's great for eyeliner application, especially gel. Now all I would say is that the hair on this brush does tend to kind of do its own thing, and they end up sprouting out. If you use this brush with eyeshadow, if you use it with gel and you keep using it with gel, it will stay intact. But when you start using eyeshadow, it does tend to kind of do its own thing, which is why I have a kind of backup collection of these brushes, because I actually do like using it in eyeshadow. So now I'm going to use a really dark brown. I'm using this super dark brown from this NARS Skin Deep palette. And all I'm going to do is just apply this to my lash line to give it some definition. So what I'm going to do is use the tip of this brush. So I've applied the eyeshadow to the tip and I'm holding it upright and I'm just pressing it right into my lashes. And what this does is it's just basically defining my lashes without it looking like I'm actually wearing eyeliner. So I'm just going right into the lashes, pressing it in. Don't worry if it's not neat, because you can always go over with another brush to just buff it in. So you can already see how I didn't even draw that along, I just pressed it in. Because the brush is so fine, it's allowing me to just give that definition rather than that whole eyeliner look. So we're going to do the same on the other side. Now what we're going to do is use the tip again, and I'm keeping it upright. But now what I'm going to do is just create a slight wing. This is great for creating wings, guys, especially with eyeshadow. So I'm going to just hold the tip and I'm literally just pressing very lightly, and then I'm dragging. But as you can see, I'm touching back and forth. I'm not just dragging the whole thing. So I'm just going to do a very small flick because I can always extend it later once I have my eyelashes on. Now I don't like this dip here, so I'm just going to fill that in a little bit. Now I don't like this to look super, as in precise. I like it to look like it's blended. So I'm going to go back in with another brush. So I'm going in with that old brush that I went in with, the Luxe Petite Crease from ZOEVA, the 231, and there's nothing on this brush, and I'm literally just gonna drag this out. There you go, that is it. So you can see how much of a difference that makes. We're gonna do the same on the other side. So I'm just gonna kind of like press it and just create that small flick there. There you go. And just fill in this dip a little bit. And then we're gonna go back in with the ZOEVA 231 brush. And we're literally just dragging that out. There you go. And then we've got a little soft wing. So I'm just gonna put my mascara and my lashes on, and then we're gonna carry on with the rest of the look. So now I'm gonna use the MAC 219 brush, and this is a pencil brush. So you can see it's quite kind of together, it's quite compact. It's got a slight point at the tip of the brush. So I quite like this for the under eye area, because I feel like it's great for just getting that precision and also blending at the same time. So I'm gonna go in and use a brown. I'm just gonna use a medium brown from the Skin Deep palette from NARS. And I'm literally just using the tip. I've only applied this to the tip, and I'm just going back and forth, and you'll see that you get that really nice smoked finish on your lower lash line. Now I'm kind of going into the lashes. So if you're worried about, if you're unsure as to where you apply this, don't try and focus on getting underneath, focus on getting it right into the lower lashes, and that way you can't really go wrong. All I'm doing is just going back and forth, and I'm not applying too much of the product. It's a very small amount. So there you go, that part's done. So I'm just gonna add some mascara to the lower lashes. Let's move on to bronzing the face or sculpting. Whatever you use your bronzer for, this brush is insane. It's so good. It's my favorite brush ever. It's the Hourglass Duo brush. I think this is the cheek. I'll make sure I label it above correctly, but it's the Duo cheek brush, and I absolutely love this, the smaller part of the brush. It's the perfect dome size for the cheek area. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I always struggle with finding the right brush that works well for just below the cheekbone area to give you that really nice chiseled look that also blends in really nicely. Now, as you can see, this is kind of like medium shape, but I love the way that the hairs kind of taper in, and it's just super soft. The brush hairs are very, very high quality. I'm not 100% what the material is, but I can list that for you. Now, in terms of the size of it, I feel like it fits in perfectly with that kind of cheek area. So you're really going to kind of get in there and get that definition there. And then you've got the larger part of the brush, which is great to kind of diffuse that color in if you want to use that side. Now, I'm going to use something that I haven't actually used before, so let's see what this is like. This is Huda Beauty's Glowish, and this is the bronzing powder in Tan Light, and it looks really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this powder into the bronzer. Now I'm just kind of, you can see how I'm coating the brush with it. This brush is really easy to use, honestly, it's so easy. So all I'm gonna do is go from kind of like the top part of the ear, not so much right in the middle, the top part of the ear, and you can see I'm using this very lightly. So I'm just kind of like pressing it in, and it's kind of buffing the color in. By the way, this bronzer is so good. It is very good. So you can see how we're just pressing it in. Now you can use this in another way. You can just go right in and just kind of go back and forth. So let me show you on this side. So you can kind of like go right in and do that, because I feel like it's the right size where you can get away with doing that. I just want to show you both ways. I kind of like alternate, depends what I feel like. I really like getting that precision, so I love taking my time with kind of sculpting the cheek area. So now I feel like I've got that really nice kind of lift on that cheekbone area. So let's get into blush application. Now I'm using this brush, which I absolutely love. It's the Otis brush in 011, and as you can see, it's kind of very tapered. I love tapered brushes. They just look so good, and I feel like they're going to work really well on the face, and they just mold into the kind of the curves of the face really nicely. So this is a tapered brush, which is very similar to that Real Technique setting brush, but it's slightly longer in length. And this brush is great for blush because I feel like it diffuses the color into the face, into the skin. So what I'm going to do is use my blush, which is the MAC Peaches blush, and I'm just basically applying this all over the brush. Now, what I'm going to do is just take the excess off. I don't like too much product on my blush brush. So I'm going to apply this just here, and I'm using the tip of the brush. Now, the reason I love this brush is because it's the perfect size. I'm not getting a dollop of color everywhere on my face, and I feel like that's the area, it's the right size for the type of, the amount of product that I want there, like the size of the area, if that makes sense. So now for highlighter. Now again, another amazing tapered brush. This brush is by ZOEVA. It's the 134 Luxe Powder Fusion brush. Now this again is not too big, it's nice and tapered, but it's not overly pointy at the end. And I feel like this is the perfect shape and size for highlight. And again, like I said earlier on in the video, I honestly go with the brushes which I feel, I don't even look at what it's for, because I feel like that can end up steering me more towards what the brands are telling me to use it for. So I like to kind of just look at the brush and say, right, okay, I feel like this is going to work really well in this area, and try it out and see if it works. So I'm going to use this brush for my highlight, and I'm using the STILA Heaven's Hue highlighter in Kitten, and this is almost like a slightly bouncy highlight. It's not powder, it's like a, I don't know how to describe it, it's like a bouncy, it's very, I don't know what it is, it's just very bouncy. So it's not like, you don't get powder residue. So this works really well, and I just apply this to the tip. I love the size of this brush, and I'm literally just going to apply this just on this area here. There you go, you can see like it's just the right amount. And the brush is kind of big enough to get that product onto the highest part of your cheekbones, but it's also small enough for you to be able to just apply it to other areas. Now I'm using my eyeshadow brush, which is number 200 from Fenty Beauty. Now again, I don't use this for eyeshadow, I actually use this for sculpting my nose with powder bronzer. So I'm using the, this is also Fenty, it's the Sunstalker bronzer in Shady Biz, and I'm going to apply this to the tip. And I'm using this brush because I feel like it's the perfect size and shape for my nose. So what I'm going to do is use the tip, and I'm literally just applying it in almost like an arrow, just on this area here. And now I'm gonna use the tip, but I'm holding it to the side because I'm applying it to the sides of the bridge of my nose. So I'm just gonna kind of, you can see how my hand's kind of staying still, but I'm just moving my fingers to move the brush. Now the bronzer I'm using is actually not very dark, and that's why I like using it for my sculpting, because it just creates the shadow and doesn't look like I'm kind of bruised or anything. I've already applied my lip liner. I'm going to go in with my lipstick now. So I'm going to use the Morphe lipstick in, this is called Wifey, it's a matte shade, and I literally just apply a small amount. I kind of mix shades together. So this is one shade, and then I'm going to go in with my Anastasia lipstick in Hollywood, which is one of my favorites. There you go, it gives me a nice peach, it's like a pale peach. And I'm just going to basically blend this in with my lip brush. So I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury lip brush. This brush is, as you can see, it's very flat, and I like the fact that it's square at the tip. So some lip brushes will be slightly tapered. I quite like it being like a harsh, straight cut to the tip, because I feel like I can really kind of get that nice clean definition, and if I ever want to kind of just shape certain areas, I can do it very easily with this type of brush. So all I'm doing, this is a clean brush, there's nothing on it, and I'm just going to blend inwards. So I'm using the flat part of the brush, spreading the lipstick inwards. There you go, and that is done. So I'm going to move on to another brush, which is also a lip brush, but I just want to show you how you can use this in a different way. Now, you can never have enough lip brushes. Honestly, I feel like everyone should have a stack of lip brushes ready, because There is just so much you can do with it. So I'm going to use a different lip brush. Now, like I mentioned, certain lip brushes are different, depending on the brand, they're different shape. Now this one is the 239 lip brush from ZOEVA, and this brush, as you can see, it's slightly kind of tapered. It's very softly tapered at the end, so it's not a harsh straight finish. Now this brush I actually use for concealer, so I use this to clean up basically the outside part of my lip and other areas that maybe I want to clean up. And honestly, lip brushes are the best for this. For any mistakes that you may make, use a lip brush instead of a concealer brush to clean up smaller features or smaller areas. And I've got a very small amount of concealer on the back of my hand, just the same Shape Tape that I used earlier. I coat the whole brush with this so it's on both sides, and I take off the excess so there's not a lot of the product left on the brush. And now what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I'm going to use the tip and I'm just going to clean the edges. Now you can use part of the flat part, so you don't have to only use the tip. You can kind of like, you're almost trying to use both sides. So a little bit of the tip, and it doesn't matter if you use a little bit of the side of the brush. It really helps to clean it up, but make sure you take the excess product off, because otherwise you're going to be left with a really weird looking mouth and you're going to be able to see the concealer. And that is literally how I use all of my brushes for this type of look. Now I will be going into a more detailed video, so really looking forward to filming that. So in the meantime, if there are any specific questions, let me know in the comments below so that I can make sure I add that on when I film my face brushes and my eye brushes video. So how do you feel about makeup brushes now? I'm hoping you feel a lot more confident, and it makes you kind of want to get out those brushes that you've probably stashed away in that makeup drawer of yours and that you've never used. So let me know in the comments below if you have any further questions about any of the brushes that I've used in this video. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be doing another few videos which are a lot more detailed, focusing on maybe just face brushes and then just blending brushes, just eye brushes. But if you want to see anything specific, or you want me to go through any specific type of brush, please let me know in the comments below, because I'll make sure I add it into my next couple of videos that I do on brushes. Now, as always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so that you never miss any of my future videos. As always, take care, and I'll see you guys soon.